Hello, how are you doing and welcome back to the channel. It is a day on from England's victory over Italy in the Six Nations, the first victory for Steve Borthwick as England head coach. So in this video, I'm going to have a little bit more of my considered reaction to what we have seen from England so far. I did a video from Twickenham, which was almost my kind of on the whistle thoughts and just gut instinct reaction to what I witnessed in the game. Having slept on it, few more thoughts for you, perhaps just a little bit more thought out on terms of where England are at the moment. So if you are new to the channel, please do subscribe. Always really appreciate that. Like the video and drop a comment down below. What do you make of England at this moment in time? I still feel like there's quite a bit of negativity towards the team when they're clearly a side in transition, but do let me know in the comments, what do you make of where they are at the moment? All right, let's get into it. So the three things that I want to focus on in this video is kicking, defence, attack, and then I'll mention consistency just very, very briefly at the end. But the first thing is kicking for England. Now, for a long time, particularly under Eddie Jones, the kicking game was such a key part of how they played, and it was a massive frustration of fans, people saying England consistently just kicking the ball back to the opposition. And in the first two rounds of this Six Nations, I think the kicking game has continued to be important for England. And for the most part, I thought they've actually kicked all right in terms of that kicking battle when it's going back and forth. I think we've seen some quite smart kicks down the middle of the field when they spot space there. And there's been a number of occasions in the Scotland game and in the Italy game where that kicking battle has resulted in England having a line out further up the pitch and then them winning that individual duel. But what is really frustrating, and I think what was frustrating a lot of fans watching that game yesterday, there was someone a couple of rows behind me who kept shouting, "Stop kicking the ball away," was when England were in the opposition 22. And I'll get a bit more onto the attack in a short while more generally. But there are a number of times where England were in that red zone, they were in a good attacking position, and they persisted with those little chip kicks in behind, and they gave the possession back to Italy. Sometimes it resulted in a goal line dropout. Sometimes Italy just got the ball back, but they were persevering with that tactic, which I just didn't quite understand. I mean, I don't hate it as a one-off tactic, something that you do every now and again, but I think doing it consistently, it just didn't work. Maybe there was something in their preparation that they saw there was space there for the Italians and something they wanted to exploit. And as I say, with the rules as they are now with the goal line dropouts, you're often getting the ball back still inside the opposition half. So maybe they view it as if their attack is reaching the end of its, in terms of the speed of the attack has slowed down and things like that. It's a good chance to kick it away and you maybe get the ball back, but overall I just think they're doing it too much at the moment. And I think most people would agree with me on that one. I think in the red zone, try and keep the ball in hand more and try and stretch that defence. There were too many occasions where their gut instinct was almost to kick it away. And I just wonder whether it's a reflection of a side who aren't fully confident in their attacking game at the moment, despite the fact that it is slowly, incrementally making improvements. So kicking, particularly kicking in the red zone, stop doing that so much would be a big thing for me. Point number two is in defence. Now, my gut instinct yesterday, watching the game, was actually that England's defence was a lot better. But as people have pointed out on this channel, the stats from the game were 40 missed tackles from England. Now, I'm not sure how many of them were bad missed tackles, which is a statistical category I've literally just made up. But what I mean from that is how many of those missed tackles were kind of leading to Italian opportunities. How many of them were maybe just one player drops off a tackle, but then immediately someone else tackles him. I think you almost need to go back and look at the game to really analyse the full context of those missed tackles. But as a number, 40 obviously isn't great, but England did have to do a lot of defensive work. Italy had more of the ball, they had more carries, so England had to get through a lot of work. Naturally, you are going to miss tackles, but that's something that they need to correct. And also, I think it happened later in the game as well. We saw opportunities for Italy when they could keep the ball in hand, when they could stretch Italy. I think those defensive structures from England did start to wear away a little bit, which is something we saw against Scotland and something the other teams, the stronger teams they face in the Six Nations, will look to capitalise on. And Steve Borthwick mentioned it in his press conference after the game, where he said they gave up opportunities later on in the game, which I think is something that they have to focus on, because as much as Italy are improving, I think any other team in the Six Nations would have punished England a lot more, particularly that period in the second half where England just looked a little bit more ragged in defence. There looked to be more space and more opportunities. And in both the opening rounds of the Six Nations, if you think about the Scotland game and the Italy game, my gut instinct is there are more opportunities for the opposition to attack space and capitalise on England's defence becoming more stretched than there is for England in attack. There haven't been too many times where you've really felt like England are going to completely puncture through the opposition defences that they're playing against. So look, it's things to work on. The final point I wanted to mention was the attacking game. Now, the ruck speed did improve for England at points in this game, and when their ruck speed improves, their attack is starting to look more dangerous. I think it was helped by Ollie Lawrence at an inside centre who could crash ball, carry, get them over the gain line, and then they could move it away quicker. But equally, there are then times where they lose that attacking shape quite quickly as soon as that ball gets slowed down. I think if you were planning to play against England at the moment, it would be saying to your back row, to your forwards, go hard at the breakdown, slow their ball down, because as soon as it's slowed down, their attacking shape, they really struggle with, and they struggle to get it going again, and they end up kicking the ball away, as we already mentioned. You also think about it, and again, when I was at Twickenham, I was thinking, well, the attacking game looked quite good at moments in time. But then you think about how they scored their tries. There was, 2 Maul tries. Ollie Chesham went over from close range, and there was a penalty try in there as well for Italy collapsing them all. So despite England's attacking game, and it has been improving, look, it is baby steps, I acknowledge that. It's nowhere near where they want it to be at the moment. But despite England's attacking game improving, those tries they're scoring are still from pretty much pushover mauls, which is in itself a positive, because if England can get their driving maul back to being the force it once was, that's a great weapon to have in their arsenal. But I also think it's probably reflective of a team not quite able to break down defences by spreading it to the backs at this moment in time. We saw it a little bit more against Scotland, particularly with the Malin's try, where they were finally able to move the ball out wide for him to score. But yeah, I think despite the fact the attack is improving, they're not seriously able to dismantle defences at this moment in time. Final point, and again, this is something Steve Borthwick spoke about in his press conference, consistency. England are just still so inconsistent. They're having good periods of games, and then they're having periods where they drop off a little bit. Particularly, as I mentioned in the defence section, they gave up opportunities later in the game. The same thing they did against Scotland, and in Scotland's case, it was a close enough game and against good enough opposition for Scotland to get themselves a try to ultimately win the game. You cannot give opportunities to teams later in games. You look at pretty much across Test international rugby, the best teams we've seen have always been the teams that can put away sides later on in the game, not give them opportunities to score. And England are giving teams opportunities at the moment, and they need to be more consistent in everything they're doing. Despite that, and despite plenty of frustrations for England fans, I do though stand by the fact that this is a side that are showing improvements. It was a low base, I appreciate that. And I do think over time, Steve Borthwick and those coaches will get England back to being more of a force in the Six Nations. I do just think it will take time. But as always, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Is that a kind of fair assessment for where England are at the moment? Like the video and subscribe to the channel, would really appreciate that. And I'll see you in the next one.